Hello and welcome to Chess Goblin, here where we discuss chess gambits, openings, and all things chess. In this video, we will be going over the fishing pole gambit. So in the fishing pole gambit, it starts out with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. And this is the most common position in chess. So for the fishing pole gambit to work, they have to play the Roy Lopez opening, bishop to b5. And instead of going for like a main line, moving your a pawn up, they retreat their bishops. Then we have like castles and solid development. We do something slightly different where we go knight to f6. And the best move and the most common move that white plays in this position is they just castle. Now you may think this pawn here on e4 is free. You can capture the knight, but it is not free because after they capture, they just move their rook over. You have to retreat your bishop. After they capture their knight, you have to recapture. And after this, black is going to be very passive opening, and it's a difficult position to play as black, with white's better developed pieces and more protected king. So instead of taking that pawn there, we initiate the fishing pole variation where we go knight to g4. Now, the most common move in this position is white plays their h-pawn h3, trying to kick back our knight in this position. But instead of retreating our knight, we gambit the knight by just defending it with the h-pawn. Now in this position, white is completely fine if they do not capture the knight. They can finish their development with their other pieces on the other side, and they're fine if they do not capture the knight. But say white wants to be greedy in this position, and they decide to capture the knight. They are completely losing after you recapture the pawn. And white, in this position, their best option is to just sacrifice the knight by finishing development on the other side of the board. But after you capture with the knight, they have to recapture with the queen. You bring your other queen over, and they have to block the checkmate that would happen on h1. But after you trade queens, and then you move your rook up, white has terrible pawn structure in front of their king. They have a huge hole. Your rook is right up there. You could easily exploit this position, and it is completely losing for white here. So in this, white decides they're a really greedy player here, and they want to keep their knight. But if white moves their knight to any possible square, checkmate is unavoidable. So, like, say that white decides to move their knight to e1, mate in 4. They decide to move their knight to d4, mate in 4. They decide to move their knight to capture this pawn here, e5, still mate in 4. But say they try to defend this spot here. Defend their king by blocking the rook check. It says they're 11 points down in material, but mate is actually unavoidable in this position. Because after you develop your queen, the best move possible for white to do here is develop this pawn. And now in this position as black, you want to push your g-pawn, and in this position, white can try to keep themselves alive by trying to run their king away, but in this point, they might as well just resign. Checkmate is unavoidable. The best move for white is to do rook to f3, but after you recapture with the queen, they have to run their king over. And in this position, this is the important square that you need to block with your knight. You want to block the e2 square because this is the spot where the king is going to try to get out from. So in this position, you develop your knight to block this e4 square. And now the best move for white to do, by just trying to avoid mate for even longer, it's still guaranteed mate at 11, is they move their king over. And now this is another important move as black. You can move your queen to the back row, but you're losing mate. You're still completely winning, but you're losing mate. What you want to do in this position is not put him in check right here or here. You want to capture this pawn on g2. That's what you want to do in this position. And now white pretty much has two options. They can move their bishop to f1, or they can move their rook to f1. But in this position here, it's completely losing whichever one black chooses. Say they move their rook right there, You just develop your rook to the back row. And in here, this is checkmate. We're threatening checkmate here. The bishop's protecting it, but it's mate in 6. They are a lost cause either way. The best move is to actually move the queen to e2, completely sacrificing the queen. And after you take it back with the knight, they try to capture the rook that keeps themselves a little bit longer alive. And mate here, mate in 5, it's unavoidable. Whether they move the rook down or the bishop, which is slightly better, but after you do this, you capture the rook on f3, and their king can't move anywhere. It can't move anywhere because the queen blocks these squares. The knight puts them in check. So what they have to do here is they have to sacrifice the queen. And in this position, they are down not only 13 points of material, but your queen is this close, mate is unavoidable, and they can try to make an escape route for their king down here, but it's completely lost. What do they do in this position? There's nothing. They can try to pull their pawns up, but after you develop your rook, mate here is impossible to block. You can try to just prolong it a little bit, get lost after this position. So this is the fishing pole gambit. I hope that you can use this in one of your games, and I hope this video has helped you. If you have not already done so, hit that subscribe button down below and like this video. It really helps. I hope to see you in the next one.